I make a point when I hear of another school shooting, I turn off the TV. Because I know that there's a mama somewhere that's saying, is this really happening? We were your regular, typical, middle-class America family. 2 kids. Catherine was 6, Freddie was 8 at the time. We had a rule in our house, and partly because I did not want to become Noah's Ark, and I had a feeling that I would. So the rule in our house was that when you collected the whatever you found in the yard, and summers were big for us. Like you'd start the day with a worm or a frog or, in a couple cases, in Catherine's cases, a butterfly. The rule was you could keep them for the day, they could be your friend, but then you had to send them on their way. And Catherine always had this really graceful way of sending them off. She would always sort of lean over them and whisper something, and we were like, what is she? What is she doing? Like, let's go, bath and bed. And one day I said to her, what are you saying? What are you doing? And she said, I'm telling them to ask their friends to tell them that I'm kind. And I just kind of looked at her, like we all do when we look at this, like, yep, there it is. She really believed that if her safety and her compassion and her love for these creatures during the day got back to their friends, they would all come back to her. When I arrived, I couldn't even get up the drive. They had barricaded with ambulances and emergency vehicles. And so it was an automatic stop in the parking lot and inside the lobby of the firehouse. The classes had just sort of clustered together, and there would be the teacher, and then all the kids just close in. And I spotted Freddie's teacher, and then, of course, Freddie. When I made my way over to him, he was the one that had said, he couldn't find Catherine. When I found out that Catherine had died, I think that it was probably 3 or 4 hours. It feels like a year. And so I'm sitting there, and when the governor had said, if you're sitting in this room, chances are your loved one is a fatality. It was this moment of, no, a 6-year-old is not a fatality. In the early days of losing Catherine, the grief was given purpose. I had to plan a funeral. I had to write an obituary. I had to find what would Catherine be buried with, and what were all of the nuances that go along with that final sort of public goodbye. For me, if I didn't have that, I probably would have curled up in a ball and probably never gotten up if I was allowed to. And when the quiet ensued after everybody left and the house was back to normal and the Christmas decorations were down, it was awful. It was this awful period of, I want normal. And maybe if I act normal, maybe if I clean my house on the day that I clean my house, and maybe if I do the things that I normally do, this pain will go away. It was so hard to set the table for 3, when for so long it was so used to 4. And the days where I would scream, Catherine, come set the table, I would stop because I would think, oh my, like, are you stupid? she's not here. Because Sandy Hook was so public, whether I realized it or not, everybody knew who I was. Everybody knew what had happened to me, and the autonomy of grieving, as so many people do, in this sort of silo, was not there. And so I would find myself walking through the aisles of the grocery store, and people were looking at me. I became one of the families. And you would hear the whispered conversations, and, sadly, I was probably one of them at one point in my life where the conversation with your neighbor is, oh, I saw so-and-so. I wanted to be the person that they looked at and said, wow, She is so strong. She is remarkable. She is handling this so well. And so rather than risk that sort of what would be humiliation or failure at grieving correctly, I just opted to not go to the grocery store until late at night, which was a complete disaster because I'm now finding myself rearranging my life to put on a face of grief that would be appropriate to the community. I had to learn the hard way, the brutally hard way, that in order to be filled, in order to be healed, and in order to grow, I needed to put myself out there, and I needed to be vulnerable, and I needed to be open and transparent. When people would say to me, "I'm so sorry, and I have no idea what to say to you, but my heart is breaking," and their eyes would well up, and I could see that they were sorry, like their heart was breaking with me. That was enough. And I think that if I didn't have the ability to just say to them, "I'm just having a really bad day. It's a bad day. I miss Catherine," I wouldn't have received that gift. The people that showed up and said, "Here's a cup of coffee. I have no idea what to say to you. I'm just here. And if you want, I'll sit here with you for an hour or two, or I'll be out there in my car, and if you need me." Those were graces. And I look at those people now and I think, wow, how vulnerable that they were willing to just put themselves out there to say, "I have no idea what I can do for you, but I'm here." Because they didn't know, and I don't know, and who knows? Like when you are dealing with a tragedy in your life, it's not like you plan for it and you think through it. I thought I did. For a long time, I thought, when my world collapses, this is what I'm going to do, and this is how it's going to look. And it's not the case. I will never, I don't know if I could handle it. I will never know what it's like as an 8-year-old little boy to live through what Freddie lived through that morning. To find out that his sister's gone. Like that's a level of grief and trauma that is extraordinary in my world. As is the fact that he will never know what it's like to hear that as a mother, your daughter's been lost in the school, because each of our experiences are unique to us, because our relationship with Catherine and the experiences that we shared with her are unique. And there's a beauty, I think, and a freedom in allowing that space of acceptance.
Zach, come here. Zach, run.
It would have been very understandable. And I'm sure that the people around me they probably would have encouraged it. If I wanted to bubble wrap my son and say, "Nope, you are going to be safe and sound close to me," I would have missed out on so much of who he is and what he is to become. It's scary. It's petrifying. But I think that if there's any lesson to be learned, the lesson is it's out of our control. This whole process has been one of complete surrender, of giving up and allowing what's real, the reality of today, whether it's painful, whether it's joyful, whether it's just a melancholy kind of day, and just surrendering to that and allowing it to be what it is, allowing the people around me to be who they are, allowing my boy to be and live who he is. I've found peace. And in a lot of ways, I've found a joy that I didn't think possible. When we were planning the funeral, it's literally, you get this sort of kit of here's what you have to do, and you have to select the service and coffins, and And so we were sitting in the family room and really trying to decide, what do we fill in the blank for in lieu of flowers? It wasn't like Catherine gave to a charity every year. You know, her cause were her creatures. Like, she just loved animals. And so we decided that in lieu of flowers, please send contributions in Catherine's memory to the Animal Center of Newtown. I had thought that contributions would be going to the Animal Control Center, the shanty at the dump, and help the animals that Catherine loved, and maybe buy a couple of milk bones, and we would be done. What I didn't realize is that I left out the word control. So donations in Catherine's memory were requested to go to the Animal Center of Newtown. And the Animal Center of Newtown, unbeknownst to them, had received over $100,000 in contributions. They said, we don't know what to do. And we didn't know what to do. Catherine was the animal girl. We were just trying to honor her love. And they said, we would love, if possible, to create a sanctuary. The sanctuary is a place where all are accepted, wherever you are. Like, whatever place you're in the world, there's the sanctuary. And it's a place of healing, and it's a place of kindness. And it's a place where, when people are there, whether they realize it or not, they're experiencing Catherine. Someone asked me just recently, so who's this Catherine? And I smiled because I realized at that moment that we had really arrived. Because I don't want the sanctuary to be a place where, oh, this is because of that little girl who died in Sandy Hook. I want the sanctuary to be a place to be, this place is fantastic, and I just feel so good when I leave here. Because that's Catherine. They know Catherine, and they have no idea that they know her. One of the things that we do now at her sanctuary is we live by the truth that, let's just tell all her friends that we're kind.